All right. Well, I have to say something about Ohio. I have to create a counterbalance, and I know where Ashley was going. The interesting thing, my son played baseball at Michigan State. And there were 2 trips where we went to Ohio State. And we watched him play baseball there. And the interesting thing, and here's the thing about sports cultures are different. Each sport is different. Don't compare football to baseball. Baseball's baseball, football's football. But in the world of baseball, what I found were that Ohio State fans were the nicest fans in the Big Ten, for whatever that's worth. And when I went to Ohio State and looked at this marvelous campus, I said, you know, if I were a kid born in Ohio, I could see why I might want to go to such a school. So with that said, we'll move on. There's always these lovely rivalries. Now, I want to talk a little bit about compassion, and that's really what this story's about. And to use a definition, compassion is a sympathetic view for human suffering, coupled with the desire to help alleviate such suffering. Fundamentally, that is compassion. A sympathetic view of human suffering with the desire to help alleviate it. It is for us a leading edge in the great shalom, the great peace. And as we practice compassion, we may see other elements of the peace interplay with it. And in this particular story, we will see elements of grace and mercy as well. So, what Jesus does here is give us a very precise way of exercising compassion. And as he constructs this story, it does offer to the ancient ear a sharp attack on racial and communal bias. He is hitting that squarely by telling this story. And the bias we have here is the Samaritan versus the Jew. Neither think well of the other. And so this whole story starts with a lawyer asking Jesus, right, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus asks the lawyer, as he would, you're a lawyer, what does the law say? And the lawyer explains the great commandment, right, to love the Lord your God with all your heart and your mind and your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself, right? And then Jesus says, yes, that's it. If you do that, you are experiencing the kingdom of heaven here on earth. You do that, you're already in eternity. It's at that point that all things change. But the attorney, he's still looking for a qualification. Surely So he says, well, who's my neighbor? And then Jesus tells the story. Now, my sense is the most significant part of the story, and we do have a great roadmap for compassion, but the most significant part of the story is Jesus making the Samaritan a hero. Okay? I was going to say it's like a Spartan fan telling a story about the good Wolverine fan. It might be akin to that a little bit. But by picking the Samaritan, what happens is Jesus is doing a wonderful, efficient job of breaking down racial barriers and social barriers. It's huge. It's transformative. This is a big, big deal. It's big. It's bold. Some might say brash, and certainly brave. Now we know that the neighbor is the Samaritan. He's the neighbor. He's the one. He's the hero. So we look at how we are to love through this story. And here we go. We've got priests and Levites, right, in this story. And the priests and Levites, they are going to Jerusalem to tend to temple matters, right? And they see the wounded stranger. Jesus tells the story, and they don't do anything. Now, it's important to understand that there are not just two people who've walked by. Priests do not travel alone, nor do Levites. Each will have some sort of an entourage that follows. So multiples of people, and the ancient ear understands this, multiples of people are walking past a fellow Jew, and they're doing nothing. And so they couldn't be bothered. Now, I look at that, and we say, well, that's terrible. But the truth is, we have to understand or explore, what does this mean for us today? What are the societal kinds of issues we have simply inherited that we must attempt to process? And are we doing a reasonably good job of processing it? Now, one of the bigger struggles in our country is that many people don't recognize the pain and suffering of others from the African American community. There is, for some, a relative lack of understanding or acceptance. There is a refusal to look deep within that struggle, to understand the history, the real history of it, and how it impacts our world right now. And you can see it all over if you study it. You can understand it. And Jesus is getting at this type of an issue through the story. Now, I'm going to argue the reason why I think it's hard for many of us to face up to this issue and not deny it, but actually embrace it and dig deeper, is because it creates a lot of discomfort, a lot of pain, a lot of anger, and a lot of fear. If I hold a certain view and I choose to dive deep into that well, it might change me. And I don't want to change so much. What would my friends think? It's something that's real. Now, Jesus is telling just as poignant a story to this Jewish attorney. Samaritans and Jews have a remarkably dim view of each other. Remarkably dim view. And with all that said, as bad as it is, as challenging as it is, dozens and dozens of people walk by this poor guy, but the hero is somebody who had a trip in mind too. He was going somewhere. But he sees a human being on the side of the road in peril. He sees it. He doesn't keep walking. He doesn't keep walking. He sees him and he feels a very deep sense of pity. It's a gut-wrenching feeling. It's so bad that he's actually feeling the other person's pain. And that's real. That's basically stage 1 compassion. That's where it begins. Again, seeing pain and suffering and having a desire to do something about it. Now, in the case of the Samaritan, he sees it, he feels it, and now he's got to make a decision. Am I going to keep on walking down the road, or am I going to do something about it? And what does he do? He alters his plan. The plan changes. And in stage 2 compassion, what we see happening is that the Samaritan moves in the direction of the wounded stranger. Now, in our world, we process compassion in a variety of different ways. And I think stage 1 is practiced the most. There's 4 stages. You get to stage 4, that's a whole new level. But stage 1, a lot of people practice. The idea that I see pain and suffering, I feel it, and because I see it and I feel it, I therefore am compassionate. And I don't have to do anything more. Maybe I'll make a $25 gift and get a t-shirt. But I don't really have to do a whole lot more. And not that that's the worst thing. It's not the worst thing in the world. It truly isn't. But it's just the beginning. And Jesus is asking us, nudging us to go further and further and further. And so in stage 2, we see the Samaritan doing so. He moves to stage 3, and he sees all of the pain and suffering that is going on. He begins to tend to it, right? He begins to tend to it. And that starts to set the stage for stage 4. Now, when we're processing things, when we see pain and suffering and we choose to choose to do something, which all of us have done stuff, the next thing in compassion is to ask the question, why? Why do we need food drives? Why do we need to resurrect the civil rights movement? Why? What good would it do? We have to ask the questions. If we don't ask the questions, there's not much we can do. So in stage 3, we deepen our understanding. And knowledge, my friends, that is all around us. We are spiritual beings. Knowledge, awareness, will hit our spirit. It no longer is intellectual. It will hit the gut. But we have to dive into the pool. If we dive into the pool, we will be transformed. The Spirit will hit us and say something more needs to be done. If we don't, it won't hit, and we become spiritually dead. So, we've all had experience in this stuff, folks. We've all had experience in this stuff. In a practical way, in a very practical way, we've played out compassion with loved ones who are dying or who have died. We have gone through that process of caring for and changing directions and doing the things that need to be done. We do have some muscle memory in this. It's not that we've never done it. We have done it, and we've done it in a variety of different ways. But in the end, Looking back at the Samaritan, he goes to stage 4, which is he takes the man on his animal and sets him up in an inn. Now, the ancient ear who hears that story recognizes that for the Samaritan to do that, that's a really radical thing to do. Because back in the day, there was a thing called blood vengeance. If you were next to someone who has been beaten up like this wounded stranger, and a family member of the wounded stranger came by and visually saw it, the family member could have you killed. Period. The idea would be, you're next to him, you did it. And you think, well, that wouldn't happen. Well, it did happen a lot, because that's just the way it was, blood vengeance. Now, you could say, all right, maybe that could happen. It's very rare. It's so weird to the modern ear. It's weird, but there's a lot of weird stuff. And this is just something that people would understand when we hear the story. Now, it could be that the Samaritan would say, whoa, wait. I've done all this stuff, and maybe the family would buy the story and back off, but they don't have to. So this is a major act of courage. In short, my friends, in God's kingdom, the demonstration of God's love is overwhelming, and it goes way beyond our norms. There are no boundaries in God's kingdom. There are boundaries in our world, but they are man-made boundaries. Okay? There are none in God's kingdom, and you have to, that's just the way it is. And so that becomes a challenge. Now, we were talking about this at the men's breakfast, and Larry Irvig asked me a question about stage 4. He said, many years ago, a group of us at St. John went down to New Orleans after the hurricane. And we went down there for a week or so to help rebuild a house. He said, is that stage 4? Absolutely. My God. That was a full-blown commitment of a significant nature. There's all kinds of examples of this in our community at St. John. There's all kinds of stage 4 examples. There really are. I mean, we can look at people that deliver Meals on Wheels. If we look at all of that, it moves into this direction. Our tutoring program is a stage 4 piece. It just is. If you follow that track, you're experiencing it. People who've been engaged in the St. John House, same thing. Therapeutic gardening, same thing. Pathways and Compassion, same thing. There's lots of examples of moving this way. And the challenge that we have is to continue to exercise it in the best ways that we can. And so for us, we have seen the glory. All of us have seen the glory of stage 4. And I invite us to continue to have the courage to go into new areas of God's hope for us and all humanity. To confront the challenges, to confront the fears, to know that God is with us, and where there is life, there is great hope for all people in God's world. Amen.